Welcome to DRTSPR show. This is Dr. Tangella Shiva Prasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR. Namaste, Adab, hello and a warm welcome to D. Narasimha Reddy Garu, economist and who gives us fair idea as to what is happening with our Indian financials. Entire country is on Kolkata, the rape and murder incident. Very sorry state of affairs. It's like it has become another NEET and NTA like Supreme Court intervening. Like we have been telling you, Gavaskar scores century, India loses the match. So this has been happening with both NEET, medical education, medical and health education, as well as now the ongoing controversy. As if that is not enough, we have been doing all the shows on DRTSPR channels very regularly on environment friendly. What happens if you occupy water bodies, whether lakes, nalas, whether it is Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai, or any other city in India, or for that matter, world, water and elephant will never forget their way. Now, that is what is happening. Now, in the form of Hydra, they say they are going to demolish everything. But at the same time, they fail to understand who has given them permissions to occupy and then construct, why there is no action against them, why the same set of officials are there, even in the Hydra. Why I'm saying all these things is, until and unless you understand the crux of the problem and who this problem is all about matters, the things keep on dragging. This has been happening with the same Hindenburg and Adani issue. Supreme Court, for what reasons we don't know, whether it is understood what Adani issue and all, with due respects to the society, we will leave it at that. The latest, SEBI. Now Hindenburg says SEBI has a major role in upkeeping of Adani's status in the world. Yeah, you are right. The Forbes status of Adani, they say SEBI has played a major role, and SEBI in tune, helped by the government of the day. That is what is the biggest issue. When such a big issue bothering us, because all of a sudden in COVID-19 time, our Honorable Prime Minister Modi was celebrating both Gujaratis' entry into Forbes list. Shocking. A Prime Minister, when the entire country, world is suffering, losing their lives, employment, and he was trying to celebrate Adani and Ambani entering the Forbes list. Richest 100 in the country, world. What is this? That is where everything started. How can only two can control entire India? And how they are doing? What is that modus operandi? Fine, Hindenburg has really come out. We have been challenging Hindenburg. Yes, you do also homework at your own Lehman Brothers and all so many issues at your own home front, how inflation has brought you down. But at the same time, can you deny if something is really happening to loot our resources in the name of one company, one businessman or two business families? If they want to control and again see to that they fund these electoral parties through illegal electoral bonds, so that the entire election process is maligned and the democracy is at stake. Democracy means people of India. All resources belong to them. When people of India, resources belonging to them are looted and the rights infringed, what for we are waiting? That is why today's show. Is it Hindenburg-ADANI saga still continuing? What is the role of SEBI's chair in Hindenburg and Adani's saga? I'll take a foreword from Narasimha Reddy. After that, I'll try to show, or else if he wishes, I'll try to show some headlines so that we can straight away, without interruption. I leave it to the choice of Narasimha Reddy.
No, you first can show, then we can go continuously. Yeah.
Done. Thank you, sir. Done. See, this is what biggest scam ever. How your hard-earned money is looted under Modi's regime in an organized way. If there is any problem with Modi, mention of name of Modi, because this is already appeared in the media and it is there from what source. I welcome you. We are ready to discuss. Can the Modi government push for a probe against Adani? Why Modi is shying away from joint parliament committee probe? I don't know. From Vinod Adani to SEBI chief. See, this is all the link. And here is the SEBI chairperson and her husband. Madhabi Puri Buchi and Dawal Buch And here is Vinod Adani, Adani's Gautam Adani's brother, and this entire fund Butch couple invested in part of structure under SEBI probe. But how SEBI has concluded this probe and how this has gone out of the contention or notice of Supreme Court when Supreme Court was seized of the matter. And in detail, Narasimha is going to explain us how the money matters, money changes, how it goes away from us, our money, how it goes abroad, and how that becomes, that illegal money becomes legal and comes back. Let us listen to our opposition leader.
करोड़ रुपए 25 लोगों का कर्जा माफ किया। अच्छा, उन 25 लोगों में एक दलित नहीं था, एक आदिवासी नहीं था, एक पिछड़ा नहीं था, एक माइनॉरिटी नहीं था। तो पूरा का पूरा बैंकिंग सिस्टम 15 लोगों के लिए बनाया गया है।
And he is forgetting middle classes, Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Where are the middle classes? And what about the role of UPA? How Adani came up and how even your government went on relaxing norms for corporates. How you got private sector like Bill and Gates into health in the form of Public Health Foundation of India. Everything is there.
मदद करने का नहीं है, वो सरकार का काम हो ही नहीं सकता। और उसके लिए हमें इंफॉर्मेशन चाहिए। 21वीं सदी है, हमें डेटा चाहिए, डेटा है ही नहीं। आप नोट कीजिए, मैंने दो चीजें कही हैं कि जाति जनगणना, सोशल इकोनॉमिक।
Okay, now is हैरान करने वाला ये टैक्स, ये this is how the tax is levied. SEBI's Madhavi Puri Butch earned revenue in potential rules violation documents show. The head of India's market regulator, Madhavi Puri Butch, continued to earn revenue from a consultancy firm during her 7-year tenure, potentially breaching rules for regulatory officials according to public documents, SEBI. SEBI chair's 99% share in firm possibly violates board's code of conflicts of interest. So, her share of 99% in a consultancy firm that earned rupees 3.71 crore in the 7 years since she became a whole-time member of the Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, potentially violates the market regulator's conflict of interest policy. The news agency reported the earnings of the consultancy firm Agora Advisory Private Limited, citing public documents from India's Registrar of Companies. See, evidences are there. And Agora Advisory Private Limited, which is owned by them, which on whose part the short seller Hindenburg Research has alleged a massive conflict of interest in probing the Adani Group owing to investments she and her husband made in an offshore fund structure owns a 99% share in Agora Advisory. Reuters reported. Hindenburg also cited documents saying Butch was 99% shareholder in Agora Advisory as of March 31 this year. That SEBI's code of conflicts of interest, and so they are also prohibited from engaging in any other professional activity which entails the receipt of salary or professional fees. In its August 10th report, Hindenburg, so it's already there. The short seller, it's already there. Reuters reported that Butch's shareholdings possibly violate SEBI's code of conflicts. It's fine. And how Adani has gone into Forbes list, is it manipulation of these things at the cost of India? That means people of India and its economy. So from I've already shown you, this is another table. SEBI chief claims her firms went dormant. Documents show otherwise. She's claiming that her Agora or whatever companies are, they went dormant, but the documents, the evidences, clinching evidences are showing it otherwise. Madhavi Butch holds 99% stake in the Indian consulting firm, which reported rupees 3 so and so. It is already there. Now, Congress party has announced nationwide protest on August 22nd over Hindenburg report. Congress is demanding JPC probe into the alleged SEBI and Adani nexus. Congress playing on front foot. But at the same time, I will show you this one. Starts protest from Telangana. Rahul Gandhi should ask Revant Reddy to cancel all deals with Adani. Here, the Telangana Chief Minister having an association. Will Rahul Gandhi and Telangana government cancel this? This is what is the Chalo. I'll straight away go back now. I think I don't want to open that. It will take time. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think we have come back to talk about Adani's story. In fact, when we talk of the present Hindenburg report on the SEBI chairperson, maybe it is necessary to contextualize why there has been repeated kind of complaints against, let's say, certain business houses. In this case, Adani. Before we get into that of, let's say, actually the immediate background for this present Hindenburg report, which involves the chairperson of SEBI, let's raise a question to answer what's been happening to some of the big houses, particularly Adani. Why he is in the news time and again, right from, let's say, 2014. He has been in the news for various reasons, maybe mostly for wrong reasons. The problem is we raise a question. For instance, Adani, before the 2014, the present central government came into power, his company's total assets were of the, I'm not going into that, a further background as to how he has come to that of even 2013, because he was very, I'm sorry, it's very close to, let's switch off. He was very close to the Gujarat government before Modi came to central government as Prime Minister. It was during that period his assets start rising, but the total amount at the time when Modi took office as Prime Minister was of the order of some exaggeration here, it may not be that also. It is said as $7 billion. That was his position in 2014. But by 2022-23, it has gone to that of, let's say, from roughly about 50,000 crores to that of 960,000 crores. From $7 billion to that of $120 billion by, let's say, 23. The question is, how such meteoric rise can happen? It's not, let's say, almost 15 times such a huge increase of wealth could increase. It can increase normally by any business, it takes centuries. For instance, if you talk of Tatas, if you talk of Birlas, or if you talk of many houses, and of course, even if you talk of Ambani's, it took almost 50 years for him to come to this position. But this man comes in 10 years, overtaking everybody. He has become richer than Ambani the last year. So how does it happen? It can happen because of these 4 or 5 ways, which are known now. Those who are becoming rich fast, one way or the other they do it. One is, of course, the links with the government. First, 2 types of things here. First, what happens is that you influence the state to change the regulatory system. For instance, what happens is the regulatory oversight itself changes. You get the rules changed. And then, of course, you get, let's say, allotments. For instance, what happened in 2014, there was a huge hue and cry that there was a coal scam. They have cancelled about 200 coal allotments. It meant for many people who are genuine, let's say, power generating kind of, let's say, businesses. Once the immediate kind of cancellation of 200 coal allotments meant their production affected. Many people many generating thermal power stations suffered losses. But I think they have to reallocate. Out of this reallocation process, here comes the Adani's getting substantial proportion of coal allotments. It is, let's say, favor shown. There is another way in which you can influence the government. This is, let's say, for instance, we have a famous case, we call famous or notorious case where a corporate house, through its influence, let's say influences the members of the parliament, gets the laws changed, tariffs changed. In fact, in the case of Ambani's, it is well known that what happened was when he started polymers production in India, he was not able to compete with that of imports. He has influenced the parliament, made in the budget change in, let's say, tariff policy. So they imposed huge tariffs on imports. Therefore, Ambani's became, let's say, more competitive kind of, let's say, production. Because the imports became, let's say, when the taxes were high, they were expensive. Ambani's production became cheap, and that's how he established this thing. Both these, whether you directly influence, like in the case of coal allotment, or in the case of, let's say, tariff changes, this is the one which we talk of leads to that of some kind of crony capital, the nexus between government and the state. There are other ways we have discussed also recently. The electoral bonds also could play that role. There is also another way, I mean, that when it comes to the question of making quick money and becoming rich, you avoid tax paying. You make money, but you don't pay taxes. How do you do that? It's done through that of what is referred to mispricing. Let's say, for instance, again, I can give you an example. In 2016, there was a big revelation that, like Hindenburg, the Guardian newspaper came out with a revelation that some company which is dealing with that of transmission lines, in fact, Adani's own almost 1/3 of the total transmission lines in India. So they were doing transmission lines in, let's say, Maharashtra. When it came to that, they played this transfer pricing. What happened was that they would import equipment from China, and then, let's say, equipment China which is bought at a lower price, and their own company in Dubai would give bills inflating the cost. This is what we refer to transfer pricing, that import raw material, whatever equipment prices were inflated. So when you show your cost of production, this inflated price shows that you don't make much of profit. That when it comes to the question, it's also done in the case of exports. When it comes to the question of exports, you show lower price. And therefore, you can, let's say, keep the kind of, let's say, the price that you earn there. You may actually get more price. If you are exporting something for 100 rupees, you show it's 50 rupees. And then, of course, actually the importer pays you 100. What happens to this 50? You keep it in offshore, some other bank, a foreign bank. In the case of, let's say, the importing of electrical equipment for these transmission lines, they have inflated through that of their Dubai company, that they imported at a very exorbitant price, something like 40-50% increase in the price than what they paid. So the difference is kept in somewhere Singapore or some other place where they have their own companies. This is how you can make quick money. You can avoid paying tax. So you can show losses. And then for your own thermal project, you can show heavy costs and charge more tariffs to consumer. It affects the whole lot, no? You make money, consumer suffers ultimately for higher price. These are the methods used. And in fact, the other one, which is, I think, close, we are coming close to that of, let's say, last Hindenburg report. He complained that Adani's were, they were inflating their stock prices. How do they do it? They have, let's say, shell companies in Dubai or, let's say, Mauritius or some other place. Those companies are trying to buy shares in Adani companies at a very high price. You raise the price. What happens then? Your own total assets increase. What do you do with the increased prices? Say if a stock was, let's say, 50 rupees, when you come and, let's say, increase the demand, it goes to that of 200 rupees, something like 3 times increase in the price. Once the price increases, you take those stocks, that's the shares, and pledge in some other bank, show that this is my The 50 rupees worth of stock which has become 200, you take it to a bank, pledge it and get loans. See, in fact, most of the amazing thing, the speed with which Adani started increasing is, it shows all this. That was the last Hindenburg report. They have manipulated their stock prices, increased their stock prices by artificially inflating by their own shell company, their own, this is, I think he is coming back, his own brother, Vinod Adani, trying to buy this and increase the prices. And you pledge it and then, of course, invest in your own. In fact, it is said that when it comes to the question of a normal corporation, the equity debt ratio is supposed to be 1:3 or 1:4 at the most. That means for every rupee you invest, you can go up to that of 3-4 rupees of borrowing. But in the case of Ambani's, it is shown that for every rupee invested, they have borrowed 107 rupees. That's the investment, and then the equity and debt ratio is something like 1:107. That's how I think the whole thing is. You can become overnight super rich and use the inflated value. This is where I think to invest in debt. Much of it is debt financing. And then much more is that to see violate some rules. In fact, this I come back to that of the latest kind of complaint against SEBI chairperson. It is in this context. We know last January 24th, Hindenburg came with a report saying that they have manipulated, Adanis have manipulated their shares, inflated their share prices through their shell company owned by his brother, which is in Mauritius also. One of these so-called offshore shell companies. And therefore, they have complained that this particular thing has to be investigated, this manipulation. So this has gone to Supreme Court. Supreme Court appointed a committee. It put 4 things before the committee. One is, it said first, they examine whether there was volatility, whether there suddenly stock prices of Ambani's have increased. Examine that, number 1. The second is, give recommendations on, let's say, protecting investor interests. Let's say that such abnormal things should not happen. The third is, judge if there were to be any regulatory failure. This is more critical. The fourth thing is, suggest measures to strengthen the regulatory framework. These are the 4 issues before this committee appointed by the Supreme Court. The committee played around these, let's say, 4 things. First, of course, they said, what is there? There will be volatility in the stock market. It is nothing new. It is nothing special about Adanis. Therefore, he said that there is nothing wrong in that. The second thing, give recommendations relating to protection of investor interests. They said that, of course, SEBI must, let's say, tighten its thing. The fourth issue in terms of reference is suggest measures. They have suggested number of measures which are already there, regulatory framework. But they have tried to play soft pedal on the third kind of reference. That is, judge if there were to be any regulatory failure dealing with that of the complaints against the Adani shares. This, the committee said, is not possible for us. In any case, the SEBI is investigating into it. Therefore, let the SEBI take care of it. Then what the Supreme Court does, it's okay. SEBI is looking at it. SEBI, it gave time to SEBI up to, let's say, it was going on up to May 4th, actually, May 2nd, last year. And then, of course, SEBI wanted time. They extended it to last August 14th. Even to this day, there is no report. That is the context in which, again, Hindenburg is saying, why is it SEBI is sitting over this? Why is it not supporting a report on violation of what is called as what we refer to regulatory mechanism, regulatory failure, and what we refer to uh, uh, oversight on, let's say, the Rabbanat. In fact, this issue involves that whether the violated minimum public shareholding in Adanis. That was the first question that SEBI must investigate. Whether there is a non-discharge of related party transactions, whether the investments made in Adani company are related to that of their own, let's say, related companies. Whether they are partners in this or whether they're related to Adani's company. Whether there is manipulation of stock prices. Anyway, they said stock prices fluctuate, but they have not gone into, the committee has not gone into this. And therefore, Hindenburg has started showing there were 13 overseas entities, including 12 owned by Adanis directly outside, which have invested in Adani companies. See, this is how they manipulate things. If you have 12 companies, they can, all of them can join together, buy, and somebody can sell. The same fellows keep on, let's say, you buy and let's say sell it at a higher price. The second fellow raises price and sells it to the third person. And therefore, the regulation is that of the total holdings by a company, at least 25% must be from parties other than related to that of, let's say, the main owners or main, let's say, stockholders. The major complaint is that Adani's, if you take into consideration their overseas companies, do not have outside contribution, which is up to that of 25%. It's much less than that. That is one of the complaints. And therefore, this SEBI has been sitting over this kind of an inquiry. These facts exist and therefore it has not revealed it. It is in this context, again, it has come with a report now. The latest report against what is called as the SEBI chairperson is essentially because they are saying SEBI is not submitting report in spite of repeated extension of time to inquire into that of whether there was any violation of, let's say, regulatory authority by the regulatory authority, SEBI. It is now saying, look, SEBI will not look into that fairly because there is a conflict of interest because this person who is chairing SEBI now, this Madhuva, what is that, Madhavi Puri Butch, she has interest in Adani's because she was a investor in one of the Adani companies overseas. That's, I think, she has invested in 215 in a company owned by Adani's brother. And that is exactly the company which played in, let's say, share price manipulation. What, of course, Madhavi Puri says is that, look, I have invested in 2015, but weeks before I became a full-time member of, let's say, SEBI, in 2017, I have, let's say, transferred those to my husband. And in fact, the husband also gives an email letter saying that it's entirely under my control. Therefore, Madhavi Butch, on the day when she joined in 2017 as a full-time member of SEBI, she did not own anything, is this Adani's brother's company.
But still she
But
is
I
his,
think,
still
yeah.
she's his wife. Still she's
Yes.
his wife.
Okay.
Family together.
Uh,
Yeah, please.
There are several other interesting things relating to the Madhavi. It's one thing is she doesn't own, but the second thing is the very appointment. She has now become, let's say, in 22, she has become, let's say, the chairperson of SEBI. How did she become chairperson? So far, the SEBI was headed by one of the service persons, that means from IAS or at the most IRS. But she is from a private company.
Yeah.
She was working in some private company and she was made, let's say, first full-time member, but made a chairperson of that company. And then the second other aspect is that having become chairperson, she has been earning remuneration as consultancy for some other company. That the amount also they have given actually. I mean, then when it comes to the question, but third is her husband has been made, let's say, the what is called as investment consultant to that of a company based in US, which is called Blackstone Company, which also invests through that of, let's say, SEBI. So all these things show that SEBI is not trying to, let's say, get a report on, let's say, the Supreme Court reference even now because of this vested interest involved, and therefore there is a conflict of interest. I mean, this is the major accusation made by Hindenburg this time. In fact, there are all kinds of, let's say, I mean, when it comes to the question of any complaint on Adani's, they start saying, look, let's say that Hindenburg is only a short seller. He has an interest in trying to, let's say, watch corporates and then, let's say, blackmail them. And therefore, when the share prices, they buy and then, of course, later sell for a higher price. They are making money. It is not like that. This revelations by Hindenburg is also referred to as it is not something like a merely short seller. It is supposed to be an activist kind of, let's say, finance company. In fact, it is also the one which gets reports from, there is an organization internationally called as Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. There are, let's say, people who are dedicated to that of, let's say, reporting all kinds of, let's say, corruption that happens internationally, particularly in trade and both in trade and as well as, say, in stock markets. This is called OCCRP. And this is supported by several intellectuals and other groups also. And therefore, just because Hindenburg is repeatedly complaining against the wrongdoings of, let's say, Adani, you can't brand Hindenburg itself as a short interested in making profits by, let's say, defaming others. That is not true. Hindenburg should be seen as an activist company, which occasionally comes out with. You see, for instance, if you look at the examples, I can give you some examples where Hindenburg has come to rescue the public interest. For instance, there are a couple of cases where you find that Hindenburg has intervened to expose a company. For instance, there is a company here, I think I have somewhere here, where I think the Indian origin Americans have invested to the extent of 130 million. In a venture. It is also, of course, again an Indian origin venture, where I think they have. This is very strange. We don't get this here. Where I think there is some kind of a Ponzi operation. They've exposed it and helped the Indian origin Indians to come out of, let's say, cheating to the extent of 130 billion. Similarly, there is another company which was owned by a Russian, which has violated several of the so-called restrictions in trade and other kinds of, let's say, activities. They also exposed that. Therefore, it is not true that Hindenburg is only trying to show the wrongdoing by companies like Adani and make profits. I don't know. There is no instance to show that the Adani episode has brought Hindenburg to make a lot of money. There is nothing like that. Therefore, we may have to, let's say, take this complaint seriously. And then the context is, of course, we know that the history of Adani shows that they have been trying to, let's say, increase their kind of, let's say, wealth through that of all kinds of means. And therefore, we can largely refer to Hindenburg as some kind of a watchdog. Many of the so-called audit companies do that. And many of, let's say, it could be even, let's say, some kind of a whistleblower to that of misdoings. Well, what is the reaction of this chairperson to begin with to this complaint.
3
She
minutes,
says that,
You have 3
Hmm?
minutes. 3 minutes.
yeah, the chairperson says that she has sold her, transferred her investments from Adani Overseas Company, which is accused of, let's say, manipulating shares, share prices of Adani's in India through that of, let's say, this brother Vinod Adani's company. That she says that she has transferred that in before she became full-time member. Therefore, she doesn't have any interest. But things show differently. But even I think there are accusations. And the second, when it comes to the question of, she also says that it is meant for only reduce the credibility of SEBI. And also she says it's a character association because the complaint is against me and my personality. She starts saying that I have a lot of integrity. But we can leave that. And the SEBI also, as an organization, says that she has been making required disclosures in terms of holding securities and their transfers. And the SEBI also says she has recused herself in matters involving potential conflict of interest. But the fact remains, when Supreme Court asked the SEBI to prepare a report, she has not recused herself. But of course, her argument is, at the time when Supreme Court referred for a report, she was no longer holding anything in Adani's. Adani Group is simple. They said that it's all, Hindenburg is just recycling claims and thoroughly everything was invested. There is no, and of course the major thing now it has become political. Of course, BJP says that it is Congress which is promoting by bringing these issues some kind of economic anarchy, and they are known for, let's say, hatred against India. Therefore, BJP accuses Congress. Congress accuses BJP saying that this government is promoting all kinds of, let's say, crony capitalism, and therefore there is need for thorough investigation into that. And they also charge that if it is not investigated, the entire SEBI's reputation is likely to be affected, and therefore it is needed, it is necessary for a joint parliamentary committee. That's where it stands. I don't know where it perhaps goes further. Maybe there will be more kind of revelations. I mean, we will have more stories about Adani. I mean, occasionally, time and again. But I think it's a sad situation because there is a clear indication that somebody who becomes fast rich does resort to means which should be, I think, put in public domain so that others will not resort to that. That's, I think, my take on it. Thank you.
Joint Parliamentary Committee probe. Will
We hope.
BJP, Modi